Hello, listeners and bookworms. Welcome back. You are here to hear us discuss chapters
Chapters
10
10
and
and 11.
11. Chapters 10 and 11. And boy, howdy are we. The first thing I'm going to say is that I am very surprised by where some of these chapters go. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So that's the little tidbit that's going to keep you along. We have almost no new Sanderson news, which is nice. The Kickstarter campaign ended for the Cosmere RPG. The late backer thing should open soon, is what they were saying. And they had a lot of nice stretch goals. There is something I do want to mention, and that is, if you are watching this video, you are important to us. And there's somebody else very important to us, and he is our guest host on the series we are doing, the Sandbox, aka Trevor. And I want you right now, if you are in a spot that you are able to, pause this, go to his channel, and subscribe. Now, why am I telling you to do that? First, great channel. He's got great content. I thoroughly enjoy it. Second, there are a good handful of Cosmere content creators. He is one of them. You are probably thinking, oh, I've burned through all my content creator content stuff this week. Well, guess what? Go to his channel and imbibe the Cosmere content. He's got some great stuff coming up. We're not going to tease it. Things have happened. Not sure when things will be released, but he is on fire. A bonfire has been built, and he has lit the match, and it is about to explode. So you want to be in on the ground level, go subscribe to his channel. He's also on TikTok. We're not on TikTok because reasons, but he's on TikTok. So in lieu of following us on TikTok, follow him on TikTok. Boom. All right. I don't think there's anything else really before we get into the chapter reading. Does anybody else have anything? Nope.
No, I don't think so.
Cool. Then we will get right to it with chapter 10. Da 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 da. Little insert before we do chapter 10. I do have a head cold. Don't tell anybody. If it sounds funky, I apologize. Chapter 10, Book Quartermaster. The second moment had happened already, when Zeth himself decided to take upon him this quest, the one that would shape all of our futures. From Knights of Wind and Truth, page 8. Kaladin followed Syl into a section of the tower with lower ceilings. They had to stop flying and walk, and soon entered the scribe's supply depot? That wasn't what they called it, but Kaladin, of course, couldn't read the sign. Scribes didn't have a quartermaster. Storms, what did they call this place? A long, low-ceilinged room full of bookcases and puttering ardents, bald heads reflecting the glowing lights embedded into the stone. The sense of paper and hogshead leather filled the air. He drew more than a few stares from the women and ardents they passed, but Syl strode straight through with her chin high, fully visible. She led him through a maze of tall bookcases toward a counter along the back. A woman stood here, arms folded, stark red lipstick on an otherwise pale face, like blood on a corpse. Wrinkles running from her nose and along her cheeks made it appear she could frown twice at the same time. When she saw Syl, both frowns became more pronounced. Syl bobbed right up to the counter. "Do you have my things?" She waved at Kaladin. "I brought my pack human." "A what?" Kaladin said. "You can carry things.
I cannot. Ergo. The aging woman behind the counter looked him bottom to top, then sniffed. I suppose I must acquiesce. Yes, you must, Syl said. Queen Navani says so. I know you checked. The woman's sigh could have rippled a battle standard, but she reached beneath the counter and brought out a book, setting it on the table with a thump. I found you a disposable copy. Syl waved eagerly, so Kaladin picked it up for her. He flipped through it, but there weren't any pictures or glyphs, just line after line of women's script. The words are all broken up, Syl said. Not written with smooth lines at all. Made with movable type, out of Yakaved, said the woman. I wasn't going to give you a handwritten one to take into the field. She squinted at Kaladin. You're not going to teach him to read it, are you? What if I did? Syl said, going up on her tiptoes and projecting confidence. Dalinar reads, Bright Lord Dalinar is a holy man. Kaladin's holy, Syl said. Tell her. I'm bonded to a piece of God, he said, and she won't let me forget it. See, Syl said. The woman sighed again. Still doesn't justify taking my books into the field. What is it? Kaladin said, flipping through the pages. The Way of Kings, Syl said. Your own copy. I got it for you, since I'm your scribe. He opened his mouth to complain about the weight, that his rucksack was already packed, then caught sight of the enthusiasm in her expression. She had this idea of scribing for him since before the attack on Urithiru. Confronted by her excited smile, his thoughts spun on their heel and did an about face. That's wonderful, he said. Thank you. The other things, too, Syl said to the woman behind the counter. Come on. The woman sent a runner girl. That left the three of them standing there, in the back of a room full of shuffling and whispering people and floating logic spread, like little storms. It wasn't quiet, but had an air of quietude. Odd how this place, with all those leather book covers, could smell so much like the quartermaster's shop with its armor. A woman came to the counter and received prompt service, even deferential. Kaladin watched with annoyance. They treated Syl differently because she was a spren? Another woman strode past, wearing a long pleated skirt with a military jacket over the top. Kaladin didn't recognize her, but that wasn't a Lethi uniform jacket, tailored more snugly than the women of Bridgeford tended to prefer. Syl's eyes went wide, and she let out a soft, Ooh. New style, the woman behind the counter said. Based on an old Ko Takama. To their confused looks, she continued. Female warrior clothing, very old, from our more savage times. That didn't use the uniform coat, of course, and those had a higher waist, and sometimes a bow. I might have a picture somewhere. She trailed off as Syl's clothing fuzzed, and she was immediately wearing something similar. Syl rose up a little, her skirt, which was longer than the one she had worn in the past, rippling faintly. Thin, pleated, with the fitted jacket above. She continued to wear her hair loose, though she was one of the only ones in the room to do so. Nice, Kaladin said. It suits you. Syl grinned. I'd suggest, the woman said, a nice pair of leggings or trousers under the Ko Takama for a windrunner, or whatever you are, so that... What? Syl said innocently. When you're flying, the woman said, so that, you know. Syl cocked her head, then gasped. Oh, or everyone will see my chol. Your chol? The woman asked. Syl leaned forward conspiratorially across the counter. I could never figure out why these humans were so shy about the spot between their legs. Strange to my uncultured spren mind. Then I figured it out. Must be something pretty ugly down there for everyone to be so afraid to show it. The ugliest thing I know of is a chol head, so when I made this body, I put one there. The woman stared at Syl and seemed to be trying very hard not to look. Cholhead, the woman finally said. Cholhead, Syl replied. Down There. Down there. Syl held the woman's eyes with an unblinking stare before adding, I feed it grass sometimes. The woman released a shock spren and made a sound not unlike one Kaladin had heard from men being strangled. I'll go and check on your supplies, she said, and scrambled away, blushing and appearing maybe a little nauseated. Syl glanced at him and smiled sweetly. Trollhead? He asked. You know us, Spren, she said. So flighty and strange. Can't even be trusted with a storming book. We might, I don't know, read it and damage one of the precious pages. He snorted. You didn't actually, you know. Kaladin, don't be stupid, she said, hovering a foot off the ground, her new skirt rippling. Think of how uncomfortable that would be. Do you even exist? He said, saying it before he thought through the words. Under the clothing. I mean, are the clothes your skin, or... She leaned toward him. Want to see? Oh, storms, no, he said, imagining her vanishing her clothing right there in the middle of the book quartermaster depot place, fully visible to everyone. Or perhaps worse, just to him, to make him blush. Storms, she could do that at any time, in the middle of a meeting with Dalinar. She'd probably find it as funny as sticking his feet to the floor. One would think, after all this time, he'd have learned to keep his storming mouth shut. This, she said, gesturing to the clothing, is part of me, like your hair maybe, or your fingernails, except you can't control yours, and I can. That doesn't explain it, Kaladin said. I mean, let's be honest, if it were me, I wouldn't finish the parts that nobody could see. Why put in the effort? It's not effort, she said. Changing is what takes the effort. She gestured to herself. This is me, my shape, my face. It's who I am. I can change to be other things. Bits of nature are easier. But eventually I will snap back to this shape, the same one I have in Shadesmar. That changes only in exceptional circumstances. Huh. It didn't answer his question completely, but it was interesting. Still wondering how much detail I have, aren't you? She said, leaning up against him. No, he said forcefully. You're going to find a way to embarrass me. So, no. She rolled her eyes. We are as we were imagined, Kaladin, she said. Basically human, but with certain enviable improvements. You can assume that if a human has it, I do too. Unless it's icky. Which again really didn't explain anything, considering how erratically Syl could define the word icky. But she fortunately let the matter drop, as the scribe finally returned with a small box. She set out paper, some ink, and several very thin, light pens, exotic ones that he'd heard were somehow made from parts of chickens. Syl bounced up and down eagerly, ignoring the book quartermaster and her severe gaze. Timid at first, Syl reached and, with effort, picked up one of the pens. Before that moment, the heaviest thing Kaladin had seen Syl carry on her own was one solitary leaf. Today, full-sized, she scrunched up her face and concentrated, then deliberately heaved the pen into the air like she was lifting a training weight. Storms, Kaladin thought, impressed as she raised the pen and dipped it, each motion slow and careful. She placed it onto the page and crafted a single letter. Then she set the pen back down. Very good, the book quartermaster said. You now display the skill of a 4-year-old. Syl wilted, and Kaladin immediately felt a jolt. His annoyance at this woman simmered into something hotter. He opened his mouth, a dozen different options springing to mind. She wanted a scene? Oh, he could make a scene. He checked those words. He didn't want to spoil his day because of a bully. Instead, he sighed, resting his arms on the counter. What are you afraid of? He asked her. Bright Lord? She asked him. I knew another bully once, he said. Short man, one-eyed, treated everyone around him like creme, pushed us hard, too hard, got people killed, and didn't have an ounce of empathy. Turns out he was hugely in debt, always terrified it would catch up to him, so he punished everyone around him. Makes me wonder if you're the same, and have some reason you're so angry and unpleasant. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, Bright Lord, she said. I hope you're lying, Kaladin said, because if there isn't a reason, if you're insufferable with no cause, then I feel even more sorry for you. So I'll go with the assumption that deep down inside you, there's a person capable of understanding what I'm going to say next. This attitude you put on, you think it makes you appear strong, but it doesn't. Instead, it makes very clear that something is wrong with you. Look at Syl's effort. You should be thrilled. Who berates a person for bettering herself? Who sells books and stationery, yet feels the need to undercut someone overcoming enormous physical limitations to use them? Kaladin held the woman's eyes and thought he saw something there, a spark of shame. And she drew a single shame spren, a white petal fluttering down behind her. Look, Kaladin said, you need to talk to someone about your problems. Not me, I'm just some stranger. But find someone. Talk. Grow. It's worth the effort, all right? She glanced away, but then gave the faintest hint of a nod. Kaladin took the paper Syl had written on and folded it, then tucked it in his jacket pocket. I'm keeping this, he said. It's wonderful. Now, Syl said, I can actually be your scribe. She glanced at the paper. So long as you carry the materials. He smiled, packing them and her book into his ruck. He slung it over both shoulders onto his back, then the two headed out. I assume, Kaladin said under his breath, most book quartermasters aren't so terrible. Wait, what did you call her? Book quartermaster? Who works at the scribe's supply depot? The head librarian, she said. At the library? Oh, right. Yeah, that's the word. You are absolutely adorable sometimes. They stepped out into Urithiru's labyrinth of narrow corridors again. Kaladin nodded to the right, toward where he saw natural light down a hallway. It had a skylight, with some open-air windows at the sides. Tired of hallways? He asked. Exhausted of them. Grinning, together they sought the sky. End of chapter 10.
Boop. All right, we're back, folks. That was chapter 10, and for the first time, we are reading these out of order. Oh, there goes Trevor.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think we've lost Sandbox.
We will give him just a minute, unless he texts us and says he's out because he hates us. He's not going to hate us. Ah, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, I forgot to mention the reason I'm wearing this beanie is that Texas finally dropped below 99 degrees, so I have to keep myself warm.
Considering my job, I am extremely thankful it's not broiling anymore.
Very nice. It is very nice. Sandbox, welcome back. We are going to discuss chapter 10 now. Are you good? Oh, no.
I was just saying thank you for the high praise. I am on TikTok. I do more Cosmere stuff on TikTok because it's a little bit easier.
Sure.
But breaking bad news, I dislocated my clavicle. So I am out of commission for a few weeks at the least. It's going to be very hard to type and do work and make content. So people that are following me, this is pretty much where you're going to be seeing me for the next few weeks. It's just here.
Oh.
Yeah. Sucks, but
Makes my heart hurt, man.
it's all good. Hey, we got Sanderson to talk about.
We do.
Highlight of my day.
We do. We have chapter 10 to discuss. So, chapter 10. So let's look at the epigraph, because that's something we can discuss easily. The second moment had already happened. The second moment had happened already, when Szeth himself decided to take upon him this quest, the one that would shape all of our futures. From Nights in Wind and Truth, page 8. Damn.
So
Go ahead.
part one of that, because I had to look back because I forgot. It's been a week. But part one of that is that it is the first moment was Kaladin listening to the wind, and they referenced him or they alluded to him as like he would have been a good edge dancer in that way.
Right, right. He did a fine impression of their oaths.
Yes, exactly.
So we for sure know the two witnesses that the writer is describing, Kaladin and Zeth. We already kind of guessed that. We already kind of knew from last week.
Yep. And
This
this quest, are we pretty confident that's Zeth's quest to cleanse the Shinlands, Shinovar of the false leaders?
absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That
Yes.
was from one of the epigraphs before. It talked specifically about the cleansing of Shinovar, which I believe will be cleansing of an unmade
Ooh,
or multiple unmade, at least.
could be.
From art released, and I think they said in somewhere. I don't remember.
Okay. What
Okay.
was the second epigraph?
The second epigraph. Should we save that for our chapter 11 discussion, or do you just want to
yes.
discuss everything at once?
Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
No worries, man. We all do that sometimes.
So chapter
So this
10.
chapter, chapter 10. So last chapter 9 was Shallan, but that halfway, or it ended with Shallan, but that halfway point, if I remember correctly, was it the halfway point or was it the end of chapter 8? Whatever. Syl was like, hey, let's go get my stuff. And Sandbox, you and I were kind of like, what? What stuff? And in this chapter, we find out what stuff. And it's not really her stuff, but then in a way, it becomes her stuff.
Yep.
It was stuff that she requested.
It was stuff that she requested. So
I would just like to say, you guys made fun of me and some people online for proposing that Syl could be the author of the epigraphs. I would like an apology.
Look, your theory, like I said earlier in our text today, your theory is gaining some traction.
Yes.
However, if we take the analogy of a train trying to get to the other side of a mountain, the track has not yet been laid properly. All right? It has not wound
in
up
full.
the mountain. It is at too steep an angle to get the train over the mountain right
So
now.
I do want to propose something.
The train is moving. Okay, you're going to propose something.
Potentially. It's a potential.
I accept your proposal.
What if the book has multiple authors?
No.
I
don't see Sanderson doing that. I think we'll get more readings, like more like sources for these epigraphs, and I think those would be the different authors. Kind of like we do with every book.
Sure. So when we look back at those first epigraphs, the theory that it's multiple authors, specifically to me that it was Kaladin and Zeth, that held some water. Because it would make sense that Kaladin or Zeth was talking about the wind talking to them as a child. But then it moved on to a singular, the writer describes themselves with singular my. These are my witnesses, or they are my witnesses. They also say, as a philosopher, this. As a historian, this. So
yeah, I'm getting closer and closer to Syl. I'm not even kidding at this point.
I see where your theory is.
Look at it from her perspective, and I don't mean to hark too much on this little theory, but
no, it's a good theory.
If let's say she woke up in the Way of Kings, kind of, and like she was called by the wind. She was acting like a wind spren. She was called by the wind, which led her to Kaladin.
Right.
And if this is written in the future, which a lot of people are proposing as well, I've seen some people saying it's Sigil, some people saying it's Lift after her like arc in the second half. Like
Mm,
it could be
It could be. It
it's
could
a
whiles
be.
down the road. And
possibility.
in that time, Syl can very easily continue to grow and mature and become more human, as we've seen her in just these first 10 chapters. Like, it's been insane growth in 10 chapters. Sanderson is harking on this notion that she's becoming more human every time we see her. It's either a huge misdirect or it's future setup, like setup for the future reveal.
Okay, so here's my only thing. I'm not denying the fact that she's becoming more human. I completely agree with you there. I still think her personality is set to the point where she would not write in the way that the writings are done in the epigraph so far. Now, maybe she'll change throughout the book. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that I don't think her becoming more human means that she will become more serious than she is now. Necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue either way for that. Right. Yeah, that's fair. I think that like this whole chapter, the main two things for me is that Syl is now learning how to write,
True.
and it sets up Kaladin even more as that therapist role.
It does. Those
We
are
see
good
him
things
kind
to
of
point
trip
out.
up. He's not quite there. He says like, it's not my job, but you should talk to someone and grow and get better. And eventually, I think Kaladin will say that it is his job to help people grow. Maybe those are his final words. I don't know. But I think we will see him at the end of this book if he survives, if he continues to pursue this therapist role, as Wit even teased a couple chapters ago. He will be helping people, kind of talking out their problems and growing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I
Good
think it'll
catch.
also be interesting, and we may get a better view of who it is if we can kind of get a sense in further epigraphs about when Knights of Wind and Truth was written. Because we don't really know how
Yes.
far in the future it's placed. So,
Yeah, I think that'll probably be one of the bigger pieces of evidence for any theory out there.
Yeah. There's I want to touch on that theory after we discuss chapter 11. Or I want to touch on the timing after we
Hmm.
talk about chapter 11. And I want to point out something because letting little things escape is no longer an option, Sanderson.
no.
So, Mistborn. Spoilers, moderate spoilers, minor spoilers. It's not big spoilers. When we jump from Era 1 to Era 2, we get a big jump in technology, right?
Hmm.
And even during Era 2, they are inventing the light bulb, they're inventing the phonograph, they're inventing ways to
Right.
talk over wire.
Right.
Anybody else catch the technological bump that Roshar got
Yep, the
in this
movable
chapter?
type.
The movable type. They have typewriters.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
It seems
So,
like we do get like a little thing here and there. Um, like what was one that they kind of talked about, like the bubble for flying? Just like kind of little nudges in
right,
the right direction every time
right.
we kind of talk about a subject, right?
Sure.
Alex, I am
Yeah.
going
Makes
to
So I mean,
sense.
that's just
slightly
that.
correct you. I think the movable type was not a reference to typewriters. I think it was a reference to the printing press.
Ah,
Yes. Yeah.
correction accepted. These words are accepted. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes,
But like
they have.
within just a year, we see all these huge upgrades, like you said. Imagine the jump for 10, 15 years to the second sequence.
Yep.
Assuming
Oh yeah,
assuming they're not all obliterated, and they don't lose a ton of progress. I mean, it could
We
be
can
pretty
infer.
similar.
We can infer.
Yeah, we can.
From, yeah.
that's actually an interesting comparison between Roshar and uh, Scadrial, which is with Scadrial being under the control of um, I'm drawing a complete blank.
Harmony.
No, not Harmony.
Autonomy, ruin, and
No,
Well-
the old dude, the dude
preservation.
that they killed in Era 1.
Oh, the Lord Ruler.
Yes, thank you, the Lord Ruler. With Scathril being under control as the Lord Ruler, and with Roshar suffering multiple desolations, it's actually interesting that both of them, for different reasons, were kind of technologically stagnant. Since under the Lord Ruler, they were specifically repressed from making technological advancements, and with the multiple desolations, they never got the chance to really move forward until very recently.
Right. This mimics, obviously, the Dark Ages during the medieval time in
Yes.
Europe,
Mm-hmm.
but also in general how constant war in various parts of the planet decimates the ability to advance technologically. Not that those advancements can't come in, and we see that happening, but if we take a look at the polio vaccine, constant war in some areas has prevented us from eradicating polio completely, and now it's becoming more of a problem. So, smart. I mean, we talked about it with our review of The Way of Kings with Generic Entertainment about how Sanderson took various themes and even specifics from slave trade in the Americas. So if you haven't listened to that, listeners, I would encourage you to go listen to our Way of Kings review with Generic Entertainment. Also, I meant to make a joke earlier. If you look close enough at my shirt, you can see a microphone appear.
Whoa.
Thank you for laughing. Okay. Is there anything else? Yeah.
Yeah. One last thing before we move on to chapter 11. I've
We
seen a
can
lot of
talk
people
about-
talking about how chapter 10 is kind of a nothing burger, not a lot of substance here. Some people even questioning why it's even in here. I just want to say two things. I love this mainly for future Trevor because years from now, when I want to reread this series, this is just one of those chapters where it just gives us some time with these characters that we love. It got some great jokes, got a little bit of character development. Very sweet scene with Cal defending his friend. I love that. It's just getting to see the characters be the characters without the stakes and the pace and the rush and everything. I love that. And also the weekly releases. This chapter is easily one that if I just started reading the book, I would rush through really quickly. I would not stop and pause and talk about it and theorize. I would just move on to chapter 11. So I'm grateful for the early releases as well.
Those are great points. In fact, I want to double down on that first point you made. And specific example here in the Red Rising trilogy, my biggest gripe with that is that we never get that slowdown. Especially with the trilogy being released fully, you can just read it 1, 2, 3. Like I DNF'd it because there was no slowdown. There was no time with the characters. It was always action all the time.
You did
And
mention that in our talks about other books the other day. That's
I will
right.
keep mentioning it until I die.
I will
sure
also say
I'm
that
sure the second trilogy
Whoa.
is better.
I think I think maybe that's supposed to be something that I think that's actually something we see with Cal a lot. Is that while he does have some high action moments, especially during the Sanderlanche and everything, his chapters have never been the highest action chapters. A lot of his chapters are personal growth, are interacting with people, are seeing him work with the people around him to better them.
I would disagree. I would say almost all the characters have a good balance in it. I just think Kaladin has the most chapters, and so he gets the most slowdown as well because of that.
That's fair. That makes sense.
Just to play devil's advocate.
Yeah. Well, all I meant is the fact that this kind of a chapter in his storyline or in his story is not unusual.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we do get more of him,
Definitely.
so we do see these moments. Right. Absolutely.
Cool.
Anything else
Well,
on
do you
chapter 10?
want to? Yeah, you want to move on to chapter 11?
Cool. All right. Chapter 11.
Chapter 11. Music Spread. For while the contest of champions was to happen in the east, a different contest was to happen in Shinovar, and one that the wind swore was equally vital. Perhaps more so. From Knights of Wind and Truth, page 8. Abadi the Fused loomed over Shallan, gaping at the sword through his chest. Radiant pulled it free, then swung for his head. Despite the wound, he had the presence of mind to duck forward and tumble over Shallan, then skidded to a stop and spun as his wound resealed. Unfortunately, Radiant hadn't managed to hit him in the gem heart or sever his spine, the two cleanest ways to kill a Fused. He took her in, then glanced at Radiant, made physical, his eyes narrowing as he hummed to a discordant rhythm. You have learned substantiation. I thought your kind had forbidden that skill. Odium will need to know. He dove through the bead wall, vanishing. The cavern immediately collapsed, a deluge of beads consuming Shallan, and the illusion of Radiant puffed away into Stormlight. Shallan held tightly to the satchel around her arm, drawing in more Stormlight, and quested out with her ungloved free hand, searching the beads. She needed one as a blueprint. She'd done this before and had practiced on this trip. In this case, she searched for a room, a bead that was the soul of a room. She found one almost immediately, an empty room. A part of her mind acknowledged that it was incredibly, even supernaturally, convenient to find the exact bead she needed so quickly. Shallan, a voice said in her mind. She had the distinct impression of Adolin beneath her and to the left. She followed that impression, using Stormlight to make the beads nudge her that way. She held on to her blueprint and hit the bottom of the ocean, smooth obsidian. There she commanded the beads back, forming a large, empty square room. The beads pulled away to reveal Adolin on the ground, curled in on himself, hands cupped around his mouth to make space so he could breathe. He blinked at the sudden light, all of it coming from her, and sat up. A few swords were scattered nearby, having fallen with Adolin. Feeling overwhelmed, Shallan walked to him, still clutching the bead. It seemed eager to be helpful. What? She'd never felt such a sensation from a bead before. And what was that voice that had led her toward Adolin? Frowning, she reached Adolin, but staggered. The room spun, and a second later she found herself on the ground, everything a jumble. Shallan, Adolin said, cradling her. Are you real? She asked. What? Of course I am. I created Radiant, Shallan whispered. I could have created you. Maybe that's why you're so wonderful. I said reality could be what I imagine it to be, but I don't actually want that. That would be terrifying. He squeezed her hand and helped her sit. The world stopped spinning and... That was him, wasn't it? Not an illusion? It had felt wonderful to manifest Radiant, a part of her stepping out and becoming real. But the idea that she could touch her illusions, how would she ever know what to trust? Trust him. You can trust him. I'm sorry, she said, taking a deep breath and putting her hand to his face. I've been pushing myself hard these last few days, what with Formless and all. We've all been pushing too hard, he said, poking her shoulder where she'd been stabbed and clicking his tongue. Likely at the damage to the coat, as he could see that she'd already healed. We need a long, uneventful rest after this. Sounds enchanting, Shallan said, waving for him to help her stand. It felt mortifying to go from a moment of such strength, attacking one of the fused, to this. She kept hold of that bead in her free hand, because there was something very strange about it. Adolin checked to see that she was steady on her feet, then grabbed a one-handed sword from the ground. Drahi and his squires are still fighting up there. Can you help me get to them? I know you need rest, but we can't leave them. She walked to the side of the cavern and felt at the beads there. They'd clicked into place, perfectly aligned in a smoothish surface. I'll need something that can make a platform and raise us up. Or maybe I can just lift this room? Pretend that... Her vision started to spin again. Briefly. The beads trembled. Adolin jumped back, and a face formed beads in the wall, in the shape of a crowned female singer, the one Shallan had sketched, which Kalek had identified as ba-ado-mishram. Shallan's sight began to blacken at the edges, and she heard a rushing sound, accompanied by... In her mind, a woman's voice speaking to the rhythms. I will kill you. I will burn everything you love. I will exact vengeance in a river of blood. Adolin's voice was a panicked but distant sound. Darkness tunneled around Shallan. I will rampage across this world until not a single human remains drawing breath. Betrayers, thieves, monsters! I will send you back to the flames from whence you... Adolin slammed an oversized, massive greatsword into the face. An eruption of beads burst from it, like a wellspring of water. The entire cavern disintegrated. She needed a dome. No, a sphere, like Navani's traveling sphere. She should have been able to create one without a blueprint, but she couldn't yet. But she did reach out and find a bead that represented such a room. That was an even more ridiculous coincidence, but she used it, enclosing Adolin and her, sending the sphere flying up until... They emerged from the ocean of beads, the door of her improvised vehicle opening at her command. They bobbed there, and Adolin put a hand on her shoulder. Shallan, what in damnation is going on? She shook her head and pointed to where the Windrunners were engaging the Heavenly Ones. As she did, one of Drahe's squires, the woman who had been stabbed earlier, came flying down. She seemed to be angling for Shallan's half-sphere vehicle, but crashed hard into the beads nearby, her stormlight winking out. Adolin, bless him, moved as if to jump out and grab her, but swimming in the beads was next to impossible. Shallan always felt it should have been easy, considering how solid they were. But the way they shifted and moved sucked a person down or flung them about. Shallan put a hand on his leg to stop him, then took in a long, deep breath of stormlight, thankful for what the Windrunners had given her. She had no idea what was going on, and she was scared. In her core, she was still terrified. That, however, Vale whispered, is a step forward. For years, Shallan had hated herself. Now, she merely feared herself. That was progress. She managed to solidify the beads around her vehicle, forming a stable ring some 20 feet in diameter. That raised the wounded Windrunner up, and Adolin, oversized sword in hand, ran to check on her. Above, the attack was relentless, and Shallan saw one of the fused in particular leading the others. Abadi the Monarch with his mostly white-patterned face. He saw her and dove to attack. Shallan had begun thinking of the Heavenly Ones as the least dogmatic of the fused, but, like everyone else, they were individuals. She should have realized her mistake in generalizing an entire group. As Abadi landed on her platform, she tried to form Radiant again, but the effort left her so dizzy she fell to her knees. Fortunately, Abadi made a huge tactical error. He discounted Adolin. He absently shoved Adolin aside and raised a sword to finish off the fallen Windrunner. Adolin leaped in and deflected the blow with his oversized sword, which he held in a strange grip, one hand on the hilt, one hand on the unsharpened section right above the crossguard. With obvious surprise at being challenged, Abadi swept for Adolin, who ducked, stepping in close, and expertly rammed the tip of his sword between the two pieces of carapace on the fused's side. It crunched as Adolin shoved it in deep. The fused gasped, and the red light in his eyes flickered. Abadi ripped himself back off the sword, managed to dodge Adolin's follow-up attack, then tried to flee into the sky. He made it 10 feet before his void light gave out, and he crashed into the beads and was sucked beneath the surface. Another fused flew to his aid, and a few more came in from above. Storms! Adolin is good, Radiant said, having at last formed out of stormlight beside Shallan. She turned her gaze upward, then raised a massive shard bow and, in a single fluid motion, loosed an arrow almost as thick as a spear. Then another. The fused above them scattered. Shallan sat and breathed deeply, concentrating on her light weaving and on staying conscious. Drahe and his squires regrouped on the platform in a defensive formation around their fallen comrade, spears up. Doing a quick count and finding everyone there save for the spren, Shallan used the bead that represented a room to build a large box around them all. Before the fused could come for them, she lowered them beneath the surface. Drehy pulled out a sapphire for light and knelt by his squire. Judging by how she immediately absorbed the stormlight, plunging them into darkness again, she was going to be fine. The next gemstones that came out didn't get consumed. Shallan flopped backward, almost completely out of light. A moment later, Drehy stepped over. "This your doing, Shallan?" he asked, rapping on the wall of the room. "Yes." "Those fused saw where we went down. They'll come for us." Damnation. It was a good point. Well, Yasna had mastery over her objects made of beads. She had demonstrated it for Shallan, floating along on a platform. Shallan had been stretching these muscles more and more lately, so maybe... With more stormlight from Drehy in hand, she managed to sink the room to the bottom of the bead ocean. Then she sent it traveling along like a little boat under the water. Now to find the spren. She could feel pattern if she concentrated, sense his emotions, so she could tell when the under-bead room moved close to him. "A little help?" she said, her head pounding. "Search through that wall for me." Drehy and his squires reached into the beads and pulled Pattern, then Testament, Maya, and finally Drehy's spren into the boat from the bottom of the sea. After that, Shallan moved them all away. She didn't think she actually moved the ship room thing, more that the beads outside moved it for her, like in a current. Once they'd traveled far enough that the enemy wouldn't find them without a lot of luck, she stopped it and let herself rest. Breathing deeply, Adolin feeding her spheres of light from Drehy's mostly depleted sack. "That was something, wasn't it?" Drehy asked, flopping down beside her. "What about Gallant?" Adolin asked, his voice pained. "Will his lashing still be working?" "Should be." Drehy pulled out his little fabrial. "That's the correct direction, toward Azamir. I think." "You think?" "This device points to something far in the distance, something the sibling called the Grand Knell, source of the current, the death of a god." "Not at all ominous," Shallan said, sitting up. "It gives us a bearing," Drehy explained. "This always points to the knell. I know the angle from lasting integrity we were to take, and I don't think we've strayed too far." Adolin started to pace. He got like his father when he was anxious. "Can we go up and send someone to look?" Shallan glanced at Drehy, who nodded. She took them up and opened a little section in the ceiling. Drehy went himself, streaking out with the lashing, though he left the compass device with them just in case. He was back less than 5 minutes later, landing on the top of the improvised boat and peering in through the hole she'd made in the roof. "You two are going to want to see this." An island was nearby, made by a small lake in the real world. There, Shallan was ecstatic to find Gallant trotting along, perfectly safe, exactly as Drehy had said. He was surrounded by an entire herd of glowing horses. Shallan had seen one before. Notam had used it as a mount, not truly a horse, but something that evoked the same impression, with a long, smooth neck and flowing strands of hair. Glowing, lithe, ethereal. As Gallant saw Adolin approaching, flown by Drehy, he let out a whinny of delight, then charged, joined by the herd. When the horses, Gallant included, reached the sea, they simply kept running, galloping through the air, hooves making glowing marks and throwing off sparks. As before, Gallant seemed completely unfazed by flying. In fact, it was as if he'd expected his lashing to work like this. It was like he often went galloping through the sky in a ghostly herd. Adolin met him with a cry of delight, grabbing hold of his neck. The ethereal horses, music spren, she'd been told, though she didn't see the resemblance, galloped around them in the air. And Shallan noticed something she perhaps should have figured out long ago. She'd remarked, upon first entering Shadesmar, how Gallant had a strange after-image glow, an outline that followed him, moved with him. Was there a music spren bonded to him? Overlapping him? Eventually the herd moved off, giving Gallant nuzzles before going, all except one who lingered, looking over its shoulder at Adolin. In a strangely intimate moment, this horse-like spren trotted back and put its muzzle out to Adolin, who lifted his hand to touch it. The interaction lasted barely a moment. Then the spren was off again, galloping through the air after the others. What was that? Shallan asked. That spren, Adolin said. It was familiar somehow. Its eyes. I've seen it somewhere before. He was interrupted as Gallant started to drift downward. The lashing, or whatever, that the music spren had provided was running out. Drahe had to swoop in and lash Gallant once more, who took it remarkably calmly. Well, I'm glad the animal is well, Drahe said, but this isn't the only thing you need to see. Drahe pointed the other direction. I spotted the horses here and came this way. Then I saw something else. Lights, Shallan said, following his gesture toward something in the distance. I saw them earlier. Those fused weren't on a random patrol, Drahe said. They were guarding something. It's dangerous to be this close, but I think we need to investigate. Hold on, Shallan said, then did a light weaving, even without a sketch first. Sure, she'd just seen the spren, but she felt proud of projecting music spren illusions around herself and the others. If they lay down lengthwise as they flew, they'd mostly be obscured. Maybe from a distance it would be convincing, merely a strange herd of spren galloping through the air, not spies. Let's go, she said. As they drew close, she could make out better what the lights represented. Ships. Hundreds of ships bearing Singer warriors, sailing the bead ocean pulled by flying mandras, trailed by motion spren of many varieties churning the waves like camp followers. Shallan gaped. That's thousands of assault troops, Adolin whispered from inside his illusion. He righted Gallant's saddle after handing off his greatsword to one of Drahe's squires. The scabbard was gone, and his equipment boxes had been knocked free. Adolin grimaced as his hand lingered on the now vacant saddle hooks. They have patrols watching to make sure no one spots them, Shallan said. It's a secret strike force. They're sailing straight for Azamir, Drahe said. Storms. They probably came all the way from the Horneater Peaks, and the perpendicularity there. They must have been planning this for months. Agreed, Adolin said. Drahe, you have to get us to Azamir as quickly as possible. The chapter ends with an image of Gallant with a music spren. The text on it says, Notum says that not all spren are imagined by men. Like the true spren, no two of these appear to be exactly the same. It also shows a picture of Adolin touching the muzzle of one of the music spren. And it says, Adolin seemed to have a special connection with this one. The end of chapter 11.
All right, and we're back. So the epigraph for this, to remind everybody, was, for while the contest of champions was to happen in the east, a different contest was to happen in Shinovar, and one that the wind swore was equally vital, perhaps more so.
Damn.
Yeah.
What's more vital than the contest of champions?
I mean, I wonder if it is going to be Kaladin assisting Zeth in his purging of Shinovar.
Like I said earlier, with the cleansing actually being an unknown. An unknown.
An unmade?
Look at me making a mistake. An unmade. With the cleansing being an unmade, and potentially also just killing everybody in Shinovar, because why not? We love a good war crime.
We love a good genocide.
There's no way that Kaladin's not going to go there and be like, this is obviously connected to the wind. I have to help out here. And
yeah.
Well, also Shinovar is where they have all the honor blades, is it not?
Yes. Well,
yes, and yes, potentially.
So what
I say potentially.
So my point of view on that is the fact that we have one Skybreaker and one Windrunner going up against people who potentially can access all of the surges via the honor blades.
Taln's blade is possibly not there, and Nail's blade is not there. Nail
Okay,
took
yes,
his
that's
blade
true.
back.
And
And then Ishar
and
is
who
there.
has Yezrian's? Because that's the one that Zeth had used.
When did Moash... Does Moash have it?
I
He
think he
might.
still might, yeah,
He might
because
still have it.
he flies out of the tower and he doesn't have access
Right.
to his Windrunner abilities without the
That's
blade.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
one of
he
the
still
missing
has.
pieces that I'm sure Sanderson's going to play around with that. Like, did Odium allow Vire to keep it now that he's blind, or did he take it and give it to someone else for a reveal later? I don't know.
Right. I also want to point out, as an advertisement for the Cosmere RPG, they have said publicly that the main campaign, the Stonewalkers campaign, revolves around where Talon's sword is,
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
and it plays directly into the events of Wind and Truth.
Oh wow. But okay, wait. So I can't. Are we going to hear about it in Win in Truth? Do you think, or am I going to
I
have to
do.
wait a year to learn this?
So, for those of you people who do not think that they are ever going to play the Stonewalkers campaign, go read the updates on the Kickstarter to find some really interesting lore. For Griff and Sandbox, I've told them not to do that because we're going to play the Stonewalkers campaign on our channel, and we're going to have it as episodes. And we are going to get some really, really, really juicy details about why things are the way they are.
I am excited for that.
You should be excited for it.
Did I ruin the surprise?
No. For what?
Good.
For what? If we're going to see Talon's sword in Winded Truth?
No, whether we're doing that or not. Campaign. Never
That's
mind.
the plan. That is the plan. That's not a.
I don't
that's the
think that
plan.
was really a
Plan
surprise.
changed.
I felt like that was kind of always the
Nah,
plan.
that was the plan. We're gonna play through
Cool.
the first step or the next step. Then we're gonna play through Bridge 9, and then we're gonna play through Stonewalkers. That's how that's gonna go.
Cool. I do have some thoughts on the epigraph.
Okay.
Mainly just where my head goes when I hear that whatever Kaladin and Zeth are doing is equally as important, if not more, than the Contest of Champions, which is a, quite an integral piece in terms of the entire Cosmere, we are led to presume. Which makes me think that either they are going to be successful in saving Ishar, and he will be a crucial character moving forward. They will find a way to reforge and maybe ascend to honor, which will be crucial moving forward. Or simply saving someone there, perhaps just Kaladin and Zeth, maybe Kaladin going there and keeping Zeth safe, or vice versa. Will mean that one of those two characters are vital in the back half of the Stormlight Archive.
I think you're definitely on to the biggest theories. I completely agree with those. I'd like to add some shenanigans with the wind, as definitely in there. Some shenanigans with the unmade, and then I want us to really think about what has happened in the Stormlight Archive so far regarding Odium. And I want to pause it. Go ahead, Griff.
No. I want you to finish your thought, but I actually have something that I want to add right when you're done, because
Okay.
I think there's an important part that we have not discussed yet on that.
Okay. The fact of the matter is, they are playing for who gets what land on Roshar. Odium stays in the Rosharan system regardless. Dalinar could become Odium's general or not. Those two things are, and this is what I'm asking you to consider. Those two things are important, but they're really not. They're really not important. Like, Odium could find somebody else potentially just as good as Dalinar. Maybe not as good, but like right underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then the other fact that Odium is staying in the system. So what? Like, okay, so he can't go wreak havoc on the rest of the Cosmere. So, like, it's been building to the Contest of Champions because the characters that we've been following, that's all they've been saying for 4 books. That's all Wit wants us, or wants them to think about, is this Contest of Champions.
Right.
So this epigraph, to me, brings into stark relief, sorry for hitting my microphone, brings into stark relief the fact that the Contest of Champions is important for who gets Alethkar and Herdaz, where the lines are set, because, and this will be the last thing, because we've already seen that most of the Parshendi don't really want to kill humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real possibility that they can live coexisting easily. So
Yep.
the Contest of Champions is becoming less and less and less important, regardless of the outcome, except for specific personal characters. Cosmere wide, the only difference it makes is whether Dalinar is Odium's general. Is that going to make that big of a difference? I don't know. That's what I'm asking you to consider.
I see what you're saying. It's almost like kind of what you're saying is just that the contest is the deadline. Everything else that happens up to that deadline is what really matters.
Right. Griff, what were you going to add?
So what I was going to add is, and we haven't really talked about so far, is what is cultivation planning? Because
we do not know.
It was she that brought Taravangian into, she is the one that made Taravangian Odium. Terra of Odium is her work, her doing. Clearly she has something planned, but we don't know what.
How would Odium go about turning Dalinar into a fuse? Because, kind of piggybacking on Griff, it does seem like cultivation set up Taravangian to take up Odium, has set up Dalinar to take up Honor, and possibly Lift to take up cultivation later on as well. We kind of talked about this in weeks past. But what steps need to happen for Odium to force Dalinar to kind of die and become a fused? That might open up that possibility for him to kind of maybe ascend instead. Like, is there... Do you see any loopholes in that? You know what I mean?
So, like, at the moment that he dies,
right? Kind of like what we saw with Szeth, Nightblood, and Taravangian and Ray's Odium.
Okay.
Right. There's just like they're all kind of existing in that one. It might have been a spiritual realm. I'm not sure, but they were kind of existing in that same arena, and a lot of moves happened in that time that I would imagine could similarly happen for Dalinar.
Could be. That's a good point. There could be some shenanigans. It's all very theoretical.
I'm also wondering if whatever happens in the east that Szeth and Kaladin deal with are going to be cultivation's doing.
Can you repeat that?
Question. If what's happening in the...
If what's happening in the east, the contest that the Wind said was even more... was just as important, if not more so. I wonder if any of that is going to be cultivation's planning.
Got it.
Yeah. So Shinovar's in the west.
West, sorry. But
no, you're worried. No worries.
Yeah. I see.
How much? Yeah. How much of that is cultivation? Oh man.
I don't know. Another thing that kind of... Oh, go ahead.
I mean, with Taravangian becoming Odium, taking literally 3 books to pull off, if not more so, because we actually know that what he was doing started happening before the beginning of Way of Kings.
Right.
And with that long of planning being cultivations doing to make Taravangian odium, how many other strings has she been pulling to bring whatever she's planning to fruition?
To bring cultivation to our characters, to cultivate them into something that is useful for her plans. Literally.
No,
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
She's been pruning, she's been trimming, she's been shaping growth this entire time, long before Way of Kings started, and so I would not be surprised to find out that everything that has been happening up until this point has been influenced by her to some degree or another.
Well, didn't Wit theorize himself a few chapters ago that she might have perhaps turned one of those ancient entities, such as the Wind, into what we now know as the Night Watcher?
Yes, he specifically said that the Wind was part of the old magic, sometimes confused as the Night Watcher specifically. That cultivation brought forth.
Well, he says there's two old magics. There's what people refer to as the old magic when they talk about the Night Watcher, but Wit was saying there was an old magic before that, though, before we were ever here, and that is like what the Wind was part of.
The Wind and whatever the Night Watcher was before it became the Night Watcher.
Right, because it had cultivation's like influence on it or something.
I mean, who's the Night Watcher other than the moon? A moon? I don't know. What would be a Night Watcher?
I think it's going to be another element or something. We've heard on Roshar so far the Wind and Stone. The old name for this book was Stones Unhallowed or something like that. Stones Hallowed. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I'm looking it up to make sure. Okay. Yeah, Stones Unhallowed was the original name for the third book, but that was when it was originally Zet's book, and Dalinar's was going to be book 5. And then Sanderson decided to switch it, which is why Dalinar is still so important for this book, but also he's been saving more and more of the Zeth stuff for book 5, and it was originally called Stones Unhallowed.
If we go with that, and off of what we know of the Shin religion, then that builds up even more the importance of what is happening in Shinovar to me. Like the simple, on the face level, Stones Unhallowed, Zeth comes to the point where he realizes that their religion is whatever, useless, evil, so on. And maybe it's because of the Unmade, maybe it's because philosophy, whatever you want to say, or whatever actually happens. But on face level, cleansing of Shinovar, Stones Unhallowed. Deeper, like Trevor was saying, we get the stones that Venli and Dalinar. Dalinar hears them when he rebuilds in Phelana. He rebuilds the statues and temples. I don't remember what it specifically says. Maybe somebody in the comments can find it and tell us. But then in Rhythm of War, Venli, more specifically, and again, we've discussed this, like you said, Trevor, Venli hears the voices in the stone.
They remember, which is kind of an important trait in my mind. They remember what they were. So imagine you get to Shinovar, there's all these stones all over the place, and it's like almost like ruins of something that was there before humanity arrived.
Okay.
And we're able to maybe it was something special for some revelation. I don't know.
Could be.
It's more important to me of where did humans arrive? Did they arrive in the Shattered Plains and that's like the origin of the Shattering, or did they arrive in Shinovar and then kind of disperse from there?
From what I remember, and again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they did actually come in at Shinovar, and then the people who stayed in Shinovar are the most like those from Ashen, so white with round eyes, or whiter, and white. And then as the humans progressed across Roshar with the high storms, with the sun, they and so on. They developed the epicanthic folds. They grew darker skin, or they evolved darker skin. They adapted with darker skin. There we go.
Do we know when the shattered plains became shattered?
We do not.
Do we have any history on it? Like, do they talk about it in any of the other eras when they reference other eras?
I am uncertain at the moment. I don't believe so.
think so, but I can't say for certain.
I've seen the main theory be that it was caused by Honor's death, but now I'm
Right.
starting to wonder if it's because they trapped ba-ado-mishram. She bonded to Roshar, and it's kind of like it's almost very similar to what happened on Cell.
Right. So ba-ado-mishram was connected to Roshar
Mm-hmm.
and the singers, and then they said Kalek said that they had to imprison her to stop her from destroying Roshar, and
Right.
that could have been at the Shattered Plains.
So what if the origin of the Shattered Plains is where she is, like, tangentially in the spiritual realm?
Could be. I'm thinking the spiritual realm location is just really
There's not a one-to-one translation with the
right.
physical.
Because
Yeah.
we see with Ja Not's interlude in Rhythm of War, she specifically says that she lives both in the physical and cognitive realm, and those don't always line up.
Right.
Right. So then the spiritual realm would essentially be like a fourth dimension on top of that.
Interesting. Yeah.
What I'm thinking. We haven't really discussed much of Chapter 11 yet, but we're going to.
We're going to. I one last note, just because we went to a wedding this weekend and we were kind of re-listening to all of the Win and Truth release stuff so far, and just catching it on the third go around. They mentioned Dalnar and the Blackthorn a lot more than I remembered, and it's starting to seem to me like it is all teasing the eventual return of the Blackthorn some point in this book. I don't know if that's going to be for the contest. I don't know if it's going to be a window of opportunity for Odium to seize Dalinar.
Well, I was about to say, the fact is, it's been shown time and time again that the Blackthorn is not a side of himself that Dalinar is proud of. So I feel like if the Blackthorn would ever make a return in this book, it's probably going to be if he fails and becomes Odium's general.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think they show it as him.
I almost wonder if it's like a warped identity of Dalinar that's like kind of caused by the thrill, and if Odium can kind of put Dalinar into a gemstone, to say when he is in this Blackthorn state, would he get a Blackthorn fused in return? You know what I mean?
We are going to wild places.
We are.
This is really fascinating. So what I want to say from earlier, just a few sentences before you said something about a gemstone and trapping Dalinar. So I feel like the increase in Blackthorn mentioning, and then Dalinar saying, sorry, I hit my mic again. I'm not used to it being down here, but I'm trying something new because we have to cultivate ourselves. The mentioning of Blackthorn, chapter 6, where Dalinar is like, Kaladin, please take over Urathir when I die. He specifically mentions, like, I feel like this isn't going to be a contest with swords. It's going to be something, and I don't understand. So, like, I feel like Sanderson is making us go back and forth. It's like a seesaw. Like, he's piling up Blackthorn. and then he piles up not Blackthorn, and then they kind of teeter. And so he's just helping us be confused about what's actually going to happen.
Yes, I think this is just one of those things where he's constantly giving us so many tidbits of so many storylines that will converge towards the end. This might
Yes.
be something that has to do with Shallan and Relaine or something down the line. I don't know, but
Could be.
it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. It's just something I wanted to bring up before we really dive into chapter 11 here.
Well, with that mentioning of Relaine, I'd like to dive into chapter 11 because that just
What's-
sparked an idea that I really like. So, we know, for those of you that have read the back blurb of the book,
Mhm.
if you are somebody who does not want to read that for some reason, skip I don't know, like a minute. So it says that Shallan, Relaine, and who is it, go into the spiritual realm?
Renarin.
Yeah. Oh, does it? Is it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Shoot. I'm going to enjoy that even more now.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So from this chapter, with ba-ado-mishram being like, I'm going to burn you to the mother frickin' ground.
Okay, wait. Okay, yeah. Do we think that was ba-ado-mishram?
Actually, I had a thought earlier today that no. I thought it was
Okay.
Odium intercepting whatever
Oh.
ba-ado-mishram was saying and twisting it.
Sure.
But based
Yep,
on
yep.
what Abadi the Monarch says with, you can substantiate, I have to go tell Odium. That makes me think that Odium was not present in that spot in Shadesmar, so I do think it is ba-ado-mishram, which then leads me from that theory to this theory, which is they take Relaine to show that humans aren't that bad. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. Relaine
I
is
really like
yeah,
that.
they have problems, but look, Jannat gave me a corrupted spren, so humans are okay now. That's where
So
we are.
yeah, ba-ado-mishram hates humans, right? We know that about her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Collect
No, I like that. I really like that thought.
And this gives me hope that we're going to see the singers that were on the Shattered Plane with that Chasm Fiend and Venli and Relaine, because then Venli and Relaine go out, and that back blurb says Relaine goes to the spiritual realm, so that means that we get to see, at least momentarily, we get to see Relaine and Venli. Which I think
I
would be
really
nice.
hope that Relaine gets some crazy weird power because of the corrupted spren, and it's not just the same thing as Relaine or as Renarin.
Renarin. I don't
Yeah.
know, man. I feel like, personally, I think it is just going to be pretty much the same. Like they might have,
No.
I think they might have different, slightly different abilities, like they show the Lightweavers have. But
Yes.
I'm firmly in the camp that because it was corrupted by Jannat, who is an unmade of
Mhm.
Odium, that it just grants a third surge, which is foresight of some sort. That's the camp I'm in. I think
Yep.
because Sanderson told somebody they were theorizing in the right direction
Uh-huh.
5 years
Yeah.
ago.
So as you mentioned it, because you mentioned it, substantiation. I just want to say, I think that is the perfect term for this
Right?
power. I think it's so cool. I mean, we've theorized about this before that the different combinations of powers that Radiance can do. I've been waiting for something like this where Shallan light weaves something and then uses soul casting to give it some sort of physicality or materialness, right?
Right.
And being able to do something like I think that's so cool. And what's even cooler is when you look up the definition of substantiation, which I mean it sounds like what she's doing, but it gets even better. The definition is the act of finding or testing the truth of something, which
I
is
like
just
that.
for the light weavers. Oh man, I love that. That was perfect word choice, Sanderson. Good job. Go get a
I like
cookie.
it. I like it.
Yep.
Let's talk about the beautiful moment between what is likely Sureblood's music spread.
Oh my God. Why would you bring that up?
That was
Oh, brutal.
these chapters where it's really slow and we're getting, I mean, not that the fighting wasn't slow, or was
Mm-hmm.
slow, but like we are getting a reaffirmation of what the characters are like. We are
Mm-hmm.
getting an incredibly condensed version of the story so far, because some people are probably going to go into it blind, or not blind, but not having read Rhythm of War in 5 years, or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just nice, is what I'm getting at.
Oh man, that was such a great moment. I didn't cry when reading it, but like a few moments after reading it, I was just thinking about it and I was teary-eyed. So, yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I love this stuff.
I also want to say I do not understand why they're called music spren. Does not make sense to me.
Because they're drawn to music, dummy.
Dang.
Yeah,
Dope.
why horses? That's interesting.
So that brings me, and so all of you choral nerds, which, if my statistics pan out right, is about 2% of the listening population, so 4 of you, will appreciate how much I think about Eric Whitacre's Water Night, which starts out with the
What?
line, "Night like eyes of a horse,"
Hmm.
uh, and it. I would encourage you to go listen to it, and think about this moment. It's quite touching. And then, so pause, listener, pause this and go listen to that, because I'm about to ruin it for you. Um, so anecdote time. Uh, through various connections on social media 5 or 6 years ago, another composer posted about asking Eric Whitacre what that song was about, because it literally talks about the eyes of a horse. And like I hold on. I need to read you the words so that I'm not just um spouting this. Like, it's beautiful. Night with the eyes of a horse that trembles in the night. Night with eyes of water in the field asleep is in your eyes. A horse that trembles is in your eyes of sea water, eyes of shadow water, eyes of well water, eyes of dream water, silence and solitude. Two little animals moon-led. Drink in your eyes, drink in those waters. If you open your eyes, night opens doors of musk. The secret kingdom of the water opens, flowing from the center of the night. And if you close your eyes, a river, a silent and beautiful current, fills you from within, flows
Hmm.
forward, to you. Night brings its wetness to the beaches in your soul. And so this composer asked Eric Whitacre what this was about, thinking he was going to get some deep answer, is literally about the eyes of a horse.
It's funny that it's all this water talk because I was thinking this reminds me of the Percy Jackson series a bit. And I always thought
Okay.
it was funny how Poseidon is the god of the ocean and then horses.
Right?
I always thought that was an odd thing, like sure you got seahorses, but no, it's like it's just a weird, like and horses. Like I don't know, it's so odd to me. So like the horses and
Turquoise as
water,
well.
I can see that connection, and maybe like Sanderson kind of alluding to that Greek mythology there. And as that excerpt you just read, equating like the water's eyes, the horse's eyes to
Yeah.
water, I think that may be what he's hinting at as well. But yeah, I don't know. Like I would make spren that look like horses, something like sailor spren or something, not music spren. That's so
Mm.
weird to me.
It is weird. I hope we get an explanation. There's one other little choral tidbit about that song I want to talk about, because it
Okay.
kind of hints at what the rhythm of Roshar might be like. Maybe it might be a stretch. Bear with me.
Okay.
In that song, and it's like 5 minutes long. I don't know how long it is. It's long. It's a nice, beautiful a cappella choral piece. So in the rhythms of Roshar, the rhythms are always there. They are, you can attune to them. The singers can attune to them.
Hmm.
So they I believe it's the rhythm of peace that they have use as their clock. So in this piece of music in Water Night by Eric Whitacre, except for one measure in the middle of the song, there is the pitch D above middle C at every single moment, or in every single measure of that song is this same pitch being held by different voice parts, except for in one measure. And if you go listen to it, it's this bass line that's just going through it. And that's what I think about kind of when I think about the rhythms of Roshar, is like there's all this stuff, all the different rhythms happening, but like if you just focus in on that one constant, then you can hear it.
Yeah.
So, what if Sanderson is just an Eric Whitacre fan?
I won't rule it out.
I would be unable to speak out of joy.
I'm just saying, maybe that's why he made the horse's music spread.
Maybe.
There's definitely a reason, and I can't wait to find out what it is.
I think it's a misnomer. Honestly, I think they're called music spread. Doesn't make any sense. I don't think Lux spread make any sense for making chasm fiends lighter. Come on. Come on. Lux spread?
Yeah, I wonder if they're more like gravity spread.
Right? But then there are gravity spread, and I don't know. Maybe
well, okay, so we do know that fortune is an actual physical, well, not physical, but an actual quantifiable thing in the cosmos.
Yes.
So it is possible, since we don't entirely know what fortune entails yet, that those spread are fortune spread.
Huh. You're right.
Can we talk about the Grand Knell?
We absolutely can talk about the Grand Knell. Is it Knell or is it Null?
It says Knell.
Does it? Oh,
yeah.
It was Null earlier.
I think you
had a typo.
Really?
I'm pretty sure, because I sent it to myself in an email this morning, and now I'm going to go look at it.
No, it's Knell in the chapter.
I see that it's Knell now. But when I read it, it was Null.
The Berenstain Bears, no one will know, okay?
I am going to lose my mind if it's Null in my email from 10 o'clock this morning.
I think you just read it as Null, not gonna lie. But it's okay. So there's something that Drehi was saying, that the device, which is a compass, points to far in the distance. He says something the sibling called the Grand Knell, source of capitalized the current, the death of a god. I mean, the only god that we know of that has died here is Honor, right? It could be ad nauseam, but I kind of doubt it. Not sure.
I mean,
could be.
Oh god, I almost tipped it. First, yes, you're right. I read it as Null incorrectly. That's on me. All right, I'm sorry. Second, source of the current, death of a god. Come on. We know what this is. Sanderson has given us a misnomer once again. It's not death of a god. It should be the Grand Knell, source of the current, the death of gods. It's the Aeon Door. Come on, guys.
It's Aeon Door?
The current, source of the current. What, if we go back to Secret History, what's flowing through the veins of what's flowing through the lines to that one station? We should keep spoiler-ish free. Aeon Door, yeah. That's the current.
Interesting.
That's the current.
Interesting.
This is
okay.
So, but like they don't know that. Like the sibling's not going to know that. Maybe. I mean, I guess they could if Honor knew that.
So the sibling is aware of Aeon Door and the death of ad nauseam?
I think so. What I'm saying is that whoever told the sibling that the compasses pointed towards the Grand Knell, source of the current, the death of a god, somebody told that to the sibling. And the sibling repeated it to Navani and Drehi and whoever. The person that told that to the sibling was incorrect. That is what I'm saying.
Interesting.
I'm not going to die on this hill, but I might die on this knell. No, that was bad. That's what I'm thinking. The Grand Net, like, I mean, it could be Honor. But, I mean, Honor was splintered. Like, not only was Honor splintered, except for the sibling, all of his splinters move. So how would a compass point to anything other than the sibling?
Mm-hmm.
But the Aeon door wasn't splintered. It was left in the cognitive realm.
Well,
So
no. I mean, well, the Aeon door is
The
Dominion
Aeon,
and Devotion that were splintered and then moved into the cognitive realm so that they could not reform.
Right, sure. However you want to do it, but like they're not moving around in the cognitive realm. They are essentially superheated gas that nobody can go into safely, easily.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So they are sitting there, and that much investiture, I imagine, if we're talking about light energy mass investiture. Oh, hey man. Light energy mass investiture, like, if it's the biggest source of investiture radiating out, I'd use that as a compass, right? So compasses work by pointing towards something that doesn't move. Those aren't going to move. It could point to a perpendicularity, maybe, but then if it's a perpendicularity of a shard that is alive, that perpendicularity might move, and then the compass
Interesting.
becomes
Right.
less.
So
Hmm.
I've been reading a lot of theories
Okay.
this last week, and there's been a few about Shallan and her family that I'm just going to throw them out there. Her family's linked to the Ghost Bloods. They might be the descendants of Malishi, the last big Bonspren that they always talk about as like, oh, she knew everything, or he, and yeah, I almost wonder if we're gonna get something more from that, and a revelation with that because of stuff like this, where the sibling just like gives random knowledge, and no one has any heads or tails of what to make of it.
I bet we're gonna get some. You know what I also bet? I bet that the current, whatever the current is, because it's capital C, whatever the current is, it's going to be explained in the Isles of Emberdark.
Ooh, I would not be upset.
Or it will.
When I first read Grand, I was like just automatically expecting apparatus because he teased
Right.
that last year, and I saw no, what the heck is this? But
Right.
yeah, there's so much out there that we don't know, and I kind of hate learning it alongside the Rosharans because they're just so like in the dark on so much.
It is really entertaining how Sanderson sets this up. I
Yeah.
do want to caveat, if it is mentioned in the Isles of Emberdark, it
Mm-hmm.
may be mentioned as something that had previously existed, because I think between now on Roshar and when Isles of Emberdark takes place, which is thousands of years in the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? That the Aeon may be, like, Dominion and Devotion might be all used up.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's possible. Although
Possible.
that does actually bring up an interesting thing about the physics of the Cosmere, which is is investiture, and even more so is the essence of Adonalsium able to be created or destroyed?
Probably not. I mean,
Yeah, probably not.
they're energy, right? So they can be transferred to different types of energy, but they can't be
Right.
destroyed unless
Which
maybe
then-
by Nightblood. I'm not sure.
Which then leads to the how could Dominion and Devotion's bodies run out if they were near infinite, if not infinite
Yeah.
gods? Which then I would like take a logical leap to, the part that Odium moved to the cognitive realm was the bulk of the mass, not the infinite.
Mm,
So, but that's just theorizing on nothing. Let's
yeah.
Although that
let's
does bring up an
briefly.
interesting point about
Oh, go ahead.
Nightblood, which is what is Nightblood doing if investiture cannot be created nor destroyed?
It's destroying evil. Come on, haven't you
Yeesh.
read this?
Of course,
There's like
yes. I'm silly
3
me.
books now that say I want to destroy evil. At least 3 books.
Yeah, he like consumes investiture and then does what with it? He turns it into energy.
Yeah, what is it power?
We are
Like,
gonna
what
get.
does?
We are going to.
Yeah.
We're gonna
I
get a
don't think
poop
we
joke.
know.
It's gonna be a poop joke.
I swear to God.
It is going to be a poop joke.
No more Dung's friend.
Nope. It's gonna be a poop joke.
Do we want to jump to the ending of this chapter where we
I
get
do.
this
I want to
big
talk
reveal?
about. I want to talk
Before
about
we
the other
do-
part of the blurb.
Oh, no, you go.
No, go ahead. No.
Oh,
My
I was
part
gonna
is
say-
my thing is.
I just wanted to touch on a really quick point, which is I think we see more of Shallan's tie to fortune in this chapter because she has
Ooh,
two
good point.
spren, because of the fact that she
Mhm.
keeps reaching for things in the Sea of Beads and it's just right there. Immediately what she needs is right there.
I was wondering what that was. Yeah,
on.
that's a
Yes.
great point.
Absolutely. It is tying on to fortune. Griff, I want to re-explain my theory that I posited last video because you weren't there. So in the chapter, my theory is that Sanderson is giving us a unreliable narrator moment, sort of, which is who is telling Shallan that she has a connection to fortune because she has 2 Nile bonds.
Kelek.
Kelek is saying it as a supposed authority. So Sanderson is wanting us to take that at face value. Except he's not an authority. He was guessing. He was guessing that it's because she has 2 Nile bonds that she has an extra tie to fortune. And
What is your theory?
my theory is the Herald is a mom.
Okay, so we at the end of this chapter we see a bunch of ships.
We do.
And it seems like they were kind of hiding. We have gotten teases that Odium has kind of seized control of the seas in Shadesmar.
Right.
And now it seems like we're kind of putting the pieces together here. It seems like these heavenly ones were kind of guarding this. They saw that our voyage here was getting a little bit too close, and so they attacked to kind of push them off this path of seeing what Odium is up to, which we don't know what he's up to fully, but he's preparing an assault. This has been months in the works, so this is Raise Odium's plan, and they are preparing for a big strike somewhere.
Azamir.
Yes.
Like they'd say, which brings me to the blurb, where it says
Mhm.
that Adolin is an Azamir. So that
Why would he be alone? He's got to be with someone.
he's with my Alarin, dude.
Oh yeah, he and his
He can
effed up
throw her
friend.
like a lightsaber.
I mean, you guys know where I think Adolin is headed, but yeah,
Yes.
I think there'll be more people there. Maybe Drehi will stay. Maybe Scar will join. Maybe Sigil will come. Oh no, Sigil I think is mentioned in the blurb. I can't remember where,
Shattered
but
Plains.
there's enough characters that Sanderson can give our golden boy some help.
Oh yeah, doesn't it say Venli's at the Shattered Plains with Sigil? Anyways, you're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Anyways,
There's ways.
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
ways.
there's someone's coming to help him. Otherwise, the heck's he doing?
The Night Watcher is coming to help him.
No, I mean, again, hey, just for people that are new and have not heard this theory of ours, but the Night Watcher is in this valley that sits to the right or the east of a mule. A mule is what separates the valley and Azamir. What did they
Mm.
capture in Rhythm of War? What was the whole thing that they were doing for the Dalinar Yasna's part? They were reclaiming a mule.
Cool. Oh, okay.
So if Adolin goes to Azir, right,
Yeah.
and he runs into trouble, he is just one hop sketch away from the Night Watcher, which is now not like contested ground. It would be a somewhat safe travel. I just don't know what those elements would be to push him towards that. But it does seem like he's set up in the general vicinity of where I want him to be, so that he can become the third colon bondsmith.
That would be sick.
That
That's
would
so
be sick.
smart. That makes so much sense. Like a giant sea force, how is Adolin gonna fight that, even with Azamir's whatever
Yeah,
they potentially have?
I don't know.
Yeah, and so
I
they
don't know.
retreat.
Griff, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I could definitely see it happening. It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, if that turns out to be the case. It'll be interesting to see what, if any, kind of light
Right.
the Night Watcher provides, because I mean, I would assume it would be Lifelight at that point, but we already have a Lifelight user, so that wouldn't really be a development in the same way that the Tower Light was, because
I think it would help Lift later on, right? And others like her, if there are any.
maybe.
I think.
I don't know.
I feel like Light Life, Lifelight, Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace does not need to be dramatic. Like, we have the Stormlight, we have the Tower Light. Tower Light's less dramatic. Void Light and Stormlight are dramatic. And we really, we don't know what Lifelight does beyond access the surges, like give access to the surge. Well, the bond gives access to the surges. The investiture allows the surges to be used. How would the Night
I think
Watcher-
there's probably some sort of relation with Stormlight and how it kind of feeds the ecology of Roshar. I think that's where Lifelight is going to play probably the biggest role.
Here it is. Gallant, kaput, dead, dies. Super sad.
What?
Adolin needs... Just bear with me. Gallant dies. Adolin needs a new steed. The Night Watcher is that steed. So I'm getting a lot of negative energy at this theory right now.
I'm not talking to you anymore.
Like, but like, the tower is stationary, and the Stormfather is like far away. So we need, like, there's a potential for like a middle ground there, where it's something much less area focused, much more specific. So like,
that'd be kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Like the Night Watcher being some sort of steed or something would be kind of sick.
Or like just Adolin could like infuse a single person with Lifelight, and then they would be able to use that light. Not infuse, but like infuse.
Yeah.
Would he gain access to
I don't know.
Cultivation's perpendicularity?
Does she have one?
I don't think so, because she has one in the Horneater Peaks.
Right.
Oh.
But perpendicularities can move.
Right, they can move. Yeah, they can.
So if he summons it, if he were to, do all this and he summons it in, Alethkar, does that mean it's now not in the Pure Lakes anymore? Or
In
or
the
not the
in the
Pure
in the
Lakes?
in the Hornator Peak.
Yeah, Horny in the
So
Peaks. Yeah.
I wanna go back to Oathbringer and that moment when Dalinar thrust his hands between realms and combined all
Oh.
three into one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Stormfather was like, "What the hell is this?" And then people were like, "That's Honor's perpendicularity." And the Stormfather was like, "That's new." So like, I don't think that's a standard bondsmith ability, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That
mean,
is
I think they're all gonna have different like abilities of that nature that are so impactful, but
And that's also
it's gonna
something I
depend
want
on
to
who
see
they
is what
bond.
abilities has Navani developed as a bondsmith of the
Yes.
tower.
Yes. I mean, it seems
Here's an
like
interesting point
one
though.
is in. Hmm.
Okay, so when in Rhythm of War, when the tower's defenses go up and all of the um, Radiants lose their abilities and fall unconscious, if I remember correctly, Lift is the
right.
only one not affected because Lift
Yeah.
runs on Lifelight rather than Stormlight.
Lifelike repair, lifelike
However,
control.
we also know that only her healing ability is still retained. She doesn't retain her friction defiance.
Okay.
Why?
Is if adhesion is Honor's false surge, could regrowth be cultivation's like chosen one?
I don't know.
Or
That's what I'm wondering. Is
specifically yeah.
Yeah, no,
why
regrowth would
was
be
Adhesion
cultivation
the one
surge.
lost?
Say that again, Griff?
Why was Adhesion lost? Why did Lift lose the access to
Lift
or
lost
not
abrasion.
Adhesion,
I would
but
yeah.
she loses her frictionless
Yeah,
ability.
abrasion.
Abrasion,
Abrasion.
thank
Right.
you. That's
Yeah.
So,
You're
like,
welcome.
why does she lose abrasion but retain the healing?
I
I
expect
think. I,
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Alex.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I just think it's like what Griff is saying. It's probably the surge closest to cultivation, but also I think that's just where she was in her progression and her ideals, and she just had a stronger relation to that power so far. Just as we've seen, Shallan is stronger with light weaving than soul casting, and Yasna soul casting than transportation. They all kind of like have that first surge that they get very intimate with, and then the other one complements it later.
That is an explanation, though I feel like we see Lift use abrasion more than regrowth.
There's a lot about Lift that's unusual because not only do we see the fact that she runs on Lifelight rather than Stormlight, but she also has the ability to touch Spren,
Right.
which has
Right.
not
So-
been explained yet.
So in this case, it could be a lot like Shallan has some sort of special connection to fortune that Collect says is actually from the Nile Bond, but we don't actually know what it is. This could be a very similar thing where whatever cultivation did to Lift gave her. So I mean, I'm gonna take back what I said. We do see her use abrasion more, but like the more impactful moments, she uses regrowth. Right? She saves her friend, who becomes the king. Like what I'm saying is that use does not equate to level.
Yeah.
Anyways, it could
I
be
think-
cultivation. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think for Navani and her big power, whatever it is, I think that's probably going to be her big moment in this book towards the end. So we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled for what kind of would go in line with her progression in this book. All we know so far is that she's bonded the sibling, and the tower is now a lot more of a welcoming, jovial place for the Spren, and they're appearing more frequently. That's kind of like those are like the big hints we've gotten so far in my mind.
This is what's going to happen.
My God.
Navani's big move is space laser, and she is going to shoot Urithiru up into the atmosphere, and she's going to use Spren as a sort of kyber-like crystal thing, and she's going to shoot Death Star level rays. Maybe less than Death Star, because that would blow up the planet. But like space laser using Spren as the ammo.
I'm going to do you one better. And she's going to take Urithiru, and she's going to use her knowledge of Fabrials to make Urithiru a giant mech that she is then going to pilot in the war against the Fused.
Yes. It turns on its side, and then it starts rolling. Right?
Alex, rolling. You need to stop talking.
I was more thinking a Transformer level style thing where like it's gonna rearrange itself into a giant robot that she's gonna then pilot across the battlefield.
You guys are both wrong. Still,
yeah.
You guys are both wrong. Syl is gonna become human. Navani's gonna become a Spren. Okay. What?
And you were upset at me? You were upset at me for saying that the Night Watcher is going to be Adelin's steed?
No, I like that.
Like, okay, I could see Navani becoming a cognitive shadow following.
No, I'm just teasing. That's not going to happen.
See that.
No, I love your theory, Alex. No notes.
I think you had a lot of notes.
I do like Griff's theory more though, so that's my final note on that.
Oh, you're talking about space laser. Yeah, that's a good one. I got you.
Do we want to end with the chapter headings and then our favorite moments?
Yes.
Cool. Chapter 10, Book Quartermaster, aka Librarian, has all 4 slots filled with Nail, who is the Herald of Justice, patron of the Skybreakers. His attributes are just and confident, and his role is judge. It seems like the read-along peeps are not... they are a little bit confused of why Nail would be used here. I kind of like it because we do see, as I mentioned before, Kaladin becoming a little bit closer to that therapist role and kind of giving a little bit of judgment. Like he's confident and he's standing up for Phil. And ironically enough, that was my favorite moment in these chapters. It's just him standing up for his friend. I love that. And,
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why the read-along people are confused here. How many, like, by raise of hands, everybody listening to this, don't feel foolish, just raise your hand. If you have ever wished that you could say something similar to what Kaladin had said to somebody that was a bully.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That actually reminds me of a quote by Aristotle, I believe, which was, never criticize someone who makes progress no matter how slow.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't know if that was Aristotle either.
I don't remember, but yeah, I remember reading the quote.
That was just...
Yeah, that's
and
great.
It just reminded me of still not being able to do much, but still making continual progress towards her goal of becoming a scribe.
I mean, I just like that it gives readers something that they can do, you know, as long as you're in a safe environment. But this is something that you can do with no superpowers required. You know, sticking up for a friend, calling out someone for being a bully, that's something that we can do. And, like, just sticking up for one another. I love that Sanderson gives, you know, agency to the characters. It also reminds us, hey, this is something we can do too.
That's nice.
Yeah. Chapter 11, Music Spren. Oh, go ahead, Griff. Sorry.
Oh, no. I'm actually going to bring it up after our favorite parts. There's a spoiler theory that I'm curious about getting
developing.
Into. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Music Spren. This one has all 4 slots filled by Ash or Shalash, Herald of Beauty, and the Lightweavers. her attributes are creative and honest, and her role is artist. The read-alongers say that they think it's pretty straightforward, and then they don't expand upon it. Do you guys see any obvious reasons for this one?
Music Spread substantiation by
Light
Shalon,
weaving.
because her light weaving
Yeah,
has progressed.
Was her like she makes like some sort of like room? Do you think was that at all creative in your guys' mind, or was that just kind of a little bit of the luck, a little bit of the fortune, maybe
I think that was
allowing her to?
I personally think that was just an expression of the fortune. The fact that she was able to reach into the sea of beads and immediately wrap her hand around the sphere that she needed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Though I will say that I think it was interesting her using it as kind of a submarine.
Yeah,
I like that.
Oh, I think what the read-alongers were saying is that she's the herald of the light weavers, and this is the Shalon chapter. I think that's
Sure.
pretty boring. I think that's kind of a cop
Yeah.
out. I think if anything, she is a little bit more honest with herself here.
Mm-hmm.
She's sort of internalizing that kind of half new truth that we got in the last week, and she's kind of pondering on that a little bit here. So that's kind of where my mind goes.
I think like Griff said, using the room creatively.
Yeah.
Music Spread.
Alex, what was your favorite moment from this week's chapters?
I'll go with Adolin and Sureblood's Music Spread.
Oh man, beautiful.
Yeah, that was really nice.
How about you, Griff?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the thing that still sticks in my mind is the illusion of radiance sticking the sword through the chest of I'm drawing a blank on the fused name.
Abadi the Monarch?
Yes, Abadi the Monarch. Just I don't know why that image sticks in my brain, but just the point of the sword shoving through his chest when he believes that it's a harmless
unfortunately,
illusion.
that was last week's chapter, Griff. So the question was, what was your favorite from this week? I'm just kidding.
I mean, it was kind of still in this chapter.
It still was. I liked when Adolin stabbed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you said yours, Trevor, was
I think just Kaladin sticking up for Syl, like saying those words that we all would have wanted to say in that moment, like you said.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Beautiful.
Cool. And then, Griff, you have a spicy theory that needed to come after our favorite moments?
Yes. And I lost it. I should have said it when I thought it. What were we talking about?
Shalosh is Shalom.
I don't recall.
We were talking about what our favorite moments were.
We were talking about...
Oh, dang. Music Spread? Were we talking about Music Spread?
Or were we talking about Nail? We were talking about Nail. Alex asked the listeners to raise their hand if they would want to say those words.
Oh, yes. No, now I do remember. I remember what it was. I was wondering if we were going to see Sigzil become a Skybreaker in this book.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, I think I don't know. I think we'll get a tease for it if not a the big reveal.
I was listening to Sunlit Man, as one does. Mm-hmm. And there's really not an indication about when, right? So it could be this book, could be any time in the back half.
My only hang-up is that we still don't know Zet's High Spren name yet. And it makes me think it's his.
That would be nuts.
So you think that Zeth is going to die and then Sigzil is going to bond Zeth's High Spren?
I I don't know. I mean, I've talked with Alex about this at length. I think Zeth could very well become the Sazed of Roshar down the line and take up all three shards.
Oh,
Which would,
interesting.
I would imagine, leave his Spren needing another Radiant to Bond. But I also just think that in this book, Zeth is going to create a schism between the Skybreakers, and you're going to have the Nalian Skybreakers, and you'll have the Zethian ones at the end of this. If that is, if Zeth doesn't just, inspire all of them.
That's a cool
And
idea.
Zet's fifth ideal will not be I am the law or I am law. It's going to be I am justice.
I like it.
It'll be interesting to see where things go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Only 3 more months to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Dang it, Sanderson. All right. I think Griff, if you'll take us out.
Indeed. Until next time, don't panic, world hoppers.
Life before death, strength before weakness.
Sure blood before gallant before destination.
These words are accepted.
I miss sure blood.